Picture a woman gliding through the glittering halls of Versailles, the center of a dazzling universe. Light from 1,000 candles catches the diamonds at her throat. The silk of her gown is a cloud of impossible luxury. She is the queen. Now picture the same woman 4 years later, shivering on a damp straw mattress in a dark, humid cell. The air is thick with the stench of decay. A jailer scrawls on the wall, not a name, but a number. Prisoner 280. This isn't a tale of two people, but the story of one woman's dizzying, brutal fall from a palace to a prison. How does a life unravel so completely, so quickly? This is the story of Marie Antoinette's plunge from power to public hatred. It's not dry history, but a terrifying cascade of human decisions, misunderstandings, and manipulations that spiraled out of control. Built from hard facts, salacious gossip, and private letters, this is the exploration of how a symbol was created, deconstructed, and destroyed, and the woman lost inside it all. Long before she was Queen of France, she was Maria Antonia of Austria, the 15th child of the formidable Empress Maria Theresa. Her childhood was remarkably carefree for a future queen, but it left her education lacking. Tutors found a charming girl who danced beautifully but could barely write in German, let alone the courtly French she would need. This was a problem, as her destiny was already decided. Her mother, a master of political strategy, saw her youngest daughter as the ultimate diplomatic tool, a living seal on a new peace between Austria and France. She was to marry the heir to the French throne, Louis Auguste. At just 14, the Austrian Archduchess was sent to France. On a neutral island in the Rhine, she was systematically stripped of everything Austrian, her gowns, her trinkets, even her beloved dog. She walked in as Maria Antonia and walked out as Marie Antoinette, Dauphine of France. Versailles was a universe of gold leaf and marble designed to intimidate. Its court was a labyrinth of ritual where any misstep meant social ruin, terrifying for a sheltered 14-year-old. Her new husband, the future Louis XVI, was gentle but painfully shy and indecisive, more comfortable with his hobbies than kingship. He was ill-prepared to be a king, and less so a husband. Their marriage remained unconsummated for 7 long years, becoming a subject of court gossip and international concern. Pamphlets mocked the king's perceived impotence and the queen's barrenness, putting the political alliance at risk. The fault likely lay with the king, but the public humiliation fell on them both. Isolated with a husband who was more stranger than partner, Marie Antoinette sought refuge in extravagance. She threw herself into high fashion, gambling, and lavish parties. Her hairstyles became architectural marvels, decorated with feathers, ribbons, and even model ships. At her private retreat, the Petit Trianon, she and her inner circle escaped the court's rigid formality. Young and naive, she failed to understand that her every indulgence was being watched. Beyond the gates of Versailles, France was teetering on bankruptcy, and people were struggling to afford bread. Every ribbon and lost bet was tallied by a resentful populace. The spectacle she created was not one of grandeur, but of reckless, infuriating waste. By 1785, Marie Antoinette's reputation for extravagance made her the perfect target for one of history's most audacious scams, the affair of the diamond necklace. The story begins with a magnificent diamond necklace, so expensive no one in Europe could afford it. When offered it, Marie Antoinette refused, stating the money would be better spent on the navy. Enter the mastermind, a grifter named Jeanne de la Motte. Her target was Cardinal de Rohan, a powerful man desperate to get back into the Queen's favor. Jeanne convinced Rohan she was a secret confidant of the Queen, even forging letters and staging a nighttime meeting where a prostitute posing as Marie Antoinette gave the Cardinal a rose. The Cardinal was hooked. When Jeanne presented a secret request from the Queen to have him buy the necklace on her behalf, he eagerly agreed. He signed the contract and handed the priceless jewel to Jeanne, who promptly had it broken apart and sold the diamonds on the black market. The scheme unraveled when the payment came due, and the jewelers went to the Queen, who knew nothing. Cardinal de Rohan was publicly arrested. Confident in his wife's innocence, Louis XVI demanded a public trial, a catastrophic miscalculation. The public, already primed to believe the worst of the Austrian, sided with the disgraced cardinal. The verdict was a disaster. Rohan was acquitted to public cheers. Jeanne de la Motte was found guilty, but later escaped and published lurid memoirs filled with more lies. Though officially blameless, the court of public opinion declared Marie Antoinette guilty. The affair solidified her image as a deceitful, profligate foreigner. The nickname that emerged from this scandal stuck: Madame Deficit. Her reputation was irreparably destroyed. By 1789, Madame Deficit was the least of the monarchy's problems. France was broke, crippled by wars and an unjust tax system. Poor harvests led to famine, and hunger turned to anger. Marie Antoinette, once allergic to politics, now pushed her husband to take a firm stand against the revolution. She wrote secret letters to other European monarchs, begging for support, letters that revolutionaries saw as proof of treason. On October 5, 1789, the pot boiled over. Enraged by bread shortages, a massive crowd of Parisian women marched on Versailles. They stormed the palace, and the next day, the mob forced the royal family to leave forever. They were escorted to Paris in a grim procession, becoming prisoners of the revolution. Their new home was the dilapidated Tuileries Palace. Under constant watch, Marie Antoinette saw her world dissolve as the National Assembly dismantled the old order. Yet she clung to court etiquette, insisting on powdered hair and formal dinners. To the hungry people of Paris, it was proof she was arrogant, out of touch, and incapable of learning. By June 1791, life in the Tuileries was unbearable. In this climate of desperation, Marie Antoinette championed a daring plan organized by her devoted friend, Count Axel von Fersen: escape. The family would flee to a royalist fortress, rally troops, and launch a counter-revolution. The plan was flawed, relying on a single, slow, conspicuous carriage. On the night of June 20th, the escape began. The carriage fell hours behind schedule, and in the town of Saint-Menehould, a postmaster recognized the king's face from a banknote. He galloped ahead to the next town, Varennes, where the trap was sprung. The capture was a profound humiliation. The family began the agonizing journey back to Paris, surrounded by hostile, silent crowds. That silence signaled a fundamental break. The king was now a traitor who had abandoned his people. The failure of the flight to Varennes was the point of no return. It shattered all trust in the monarchy, and for Marie Antoinette, it confirmed the populace's worst fears. She was an enemy of France. The failed escape sealed the monarchy's fate. On August 10, 1792, revolutionaries stormed the Tuileries Palace. After a brutal battle, the royal family fled to the Legislative Assembly, which promptly voted to suspend the monarchy and arrest them. The French monarchy was over. Taken to the Temple Fortress prison, Louis was separated from his family, tried for high treason and executed by guillotine in January 1793. Marie Antoinette, now a widow, was soon separated from her children and transferred to the conciergerie, the antechamber to the guillotine. In a damp cell watched day and night, she was no longer queen, but the widow Capet, and then prisoner 280. In October 1793, she faced the Revolutionary Tribunal for a show trial. She was charged with treason and emptying the treasury. Then came the final vile accusation: incest with her 8-year-old son, who had been terrified into signing a statement against her. At this, the stoic queen rose. Turning to the women in the courtroom, she said, "If I have not replied, it is because nature herself refuses to respond to such an accusation brought against a mother." The courtroom was stunned into silence, a flash of defiance that changed nothing. The verdict was a foregone conclusion: guilty. At dawn on October 16, 1793, executioners entered her cell, roughly cut her prematurely white hair, and bound her hands tightly behind her back. Unlike her husband, she was forced into an open cart for a final, humiliating journey through jeering crowds. The artist Jacques-Louis David sketched her as she passed, a haggard woman paraded to her death. On the scaffold, she maintained her composure. She accidentally stepped on the executioner's foot. Her last words were a simple apology: "Monsieur, I beg your pardon, I did not do it on purpose." A moment later, the blade fell. Her body was thrown into an unmarked common grave. The fate of Marie Antoinette's son, Louis Charles, was brutal. Considered King Louis XVII by royalists, He remained imprisoned, neglected, and tortured. He died in his cell in 1795. In 1815, after Napoleon's fall, the monarchy was restored. The new king, Louis XVIII, had the remains of his brother and the queen exhumed and given a royal reburial in the Basilica of Saint-Denis. History is rarely neat. The caricature of a vain queen saying, "Let them eat cake," a phrase she almost certainly never uttered, has given way to a more nuanced view. She was a flawed individual, ill-equipped for her role and drawn to indefensible luxury while her country starved. But her story is also a chilling reminder of how easily a person becomes a symbol and how viciously that symbol can be devoured by history. Revolutions, in their hunger for change, can be just as consuming. History hasn't let her off the hook, but it has, over time, let her be human again. If this story struck a deeper chord than expected, subscribe for more history told as it actually went down. Comment below. Was Marie Antoinette a clueless scapegoat caught in the gears of history, or a secret plotter who earned her fate? The best takes will be pinned. And for those interested in her own words, a link to the final letter she wrote to her sister-in-law just hours before her execution is in the description. Raw, uncensored, and unfiltered.